What's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. A little bit of a different video tonight. As most of you know who have been watching my channel for long enough, you know that I'm really into video games. I used to cover a lot more video games on my channel a few years ago until I made the decision that it was probably best for me to just stick to kind of one thing, which is more music related. So that's why you haven't really seen much more of the video game videos. But to go even further, I've recently left the retro game collecting scene entirely. Like, I am no longer trying to collect video games, really of any kind, unless it's one that I really want to play. So just a little backstory. I got into collecting like retro video games back in, like, really collecting them back in like 2013 or 2014. I'd always loved like the Super Nintendo and regular Nintendo growing up, so I legitimately liked the games that I was, playing, and then collecting seemed like a really fun thing to do. Now, at this time in 2013 and 2014, I feel like a lot of the millennials were in their early to mid 20s, so they're starting to get that point to where they wanted that childhood nostalgia back. So there was this big boom. There was a lot of new YouTube channels that got started up based on, retro games, and to this day there's still YouTube channels based on that, but I feel like its heyday is kind of like over to a certain degree. So, I mean, like I said, I kind of got into it at a time where it was becoming popular, which I was fine with because I loved playing the games anyway. So it was like a community and a fad, or whatever you want to call it, that I actually was into and was happy was flourishing. And I thought, it's fun to buy these old games that I loved, and it's even more fun to find new old games that I would fall in love with, which I did. But also at the time, since I lived with my parents back then, I had no concern about space, like storing all these games, and I had no concern about having to ever move them anywhere because I was at their house for the foreseeable future at that time. And I also had a lot of disposable income. Like, I was just buying a lot of stuff that I didn't need. Some of it I did, like my camera and my lighting for this that I still use to this day. I started buying stupid shit too. Like when I had like all this disposable income, like I bought some like choice titles like Earthbound and Mega Man X3. But then I started buying stuff like, at one point I owned like 4 Nintendo GameCubes. I owned like 4 Nintendo 64s. I still have 4 regular Nintendos. Only one of them works currently. So it got really ridiculous. But, I bought most of my expensive titles during that time. But then when I eventually moved out on my own, and I realized like half the shit that I ended up packing was all boxes full of like old video games and video game systems, I started to, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is kind of like a hassle. But at no point was I like, let me get rid of these or let me sell these. It never occurred to me to do that. I still thought to myself, I love these material possessions, and this brings me happiness. So then, ever since I've lived at this new place for the last 4 years or so, I made like this little retro man cave room in one of my extra bedrooms, and it became kind of my like utopia walking in there. It felt like you were in a little small used video game store with how many games I had acquired. But with most people, the pandemic of 2020 really sank in, and I was out of work for 6 months, and I began to rethink a lot of things. Like, I need to keep a fucking roof over my head, and so money was a huge concern for me at the time. But I still, even at that point, never thought about selling off any of my huge collection. Those were my babies. Then I finally hit a breaking point a few months ago where I had a pseudo-revelation that the gaming community might understand. My priorities were not with these games. These were just little tokens of nostalgia that I was afraid to let go of. My main priority is my band, Dancing with Ghosts, and I need money to fund this band and all the various things that we're trying to do. And then there was kind of the money thing, like the debt and all that was piling up. I also realized that like 9 times out of 10 in the last like year or two, like all the games I was playing was on my PlayStation 4, which is not retro by any means. And I was playing a lot of like the new games that were coming out. And then probably the biggest revelation I had was, I don't play any of this shit in the other room, in my little game man cave. I never, if I go in there, it's late at night when I'm on the phone, I'll just be wandering around my house. I'll walk in there, I'll look around at all the games and be like, good. And then I'll walk back out. Every once in a fucking blue moon, if I have someone over, I'll grab Mario Kart off the shelf, because that's what everyone, they all want to play like the Mario games and shit. My biggest collection was my Super Nintendo games. I think I had almost like 200 Super Nintendo games, which isn't a lot to big game collectors, but it's a lot to me. And I would say probably like 70% of that collection, when I really started looking at, was crap. And it was stuff I was never going to play, So basically, I realized that I'm never honestly going to sit down and play 90% of these games. So why the fuck am I holding on to them? Like, it was like a switch that came onto my head. And then I started thinking, I'm like, all right, all the really good games, most of them made their way onto the Super Nintendo Classic or the NES Classic. Now, the NES had a lot more games than the Super Nintendo did, so it can be argued. But, you can hack those systems anyway, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But so what I've been doing for the past few months is I've just been selling off big chunks of my game collection en masse. eBay has been a great tool for this, seeing as game cartridges, especially if you have a valuable one, they're small, they're light, they're easy to ship, so your shipping costs aren't going to be crazy, and you're gonna get a lot of money in return. So that's what I've been doing. And anything that's too big for me to sell on eBay, I just take it to my used video game store and get fucking ripped off out the ass. But I get it; they have to, make their profit too. I've been selling stuff on there. Like I think I'd sold like 12 Nintendo 64 manuals for like $100. I didn't even know I had these manuals. I forgot about them. They were just in one of my closets. And I'm just like, dude, I just have money sitting around my house that I could be, converting this stuff that means nothing to me, that for some reason when I was mad into collecting and I had the collecting bug, I was like, God, let me acquire all this stuff and just sit on it and just say I have it. And it's stupid too, because most people besides other game collectors don't give two shits about your large game collection. Most people don't do it for other people. They do it because it makes them happy, and I understand that, and good for them. But dude, I just sold all kinds of crap that I was surprised people bought, like boxes and manuals and this, that, and the other, which, I really wasn't that surprised if people bought those, but, the amount of money that they're willing to spend on it, I'm just like, shit, man, take it. Another thing with me is, like, I mentioned before with the SNES Classic and the NES Classic and all the little mini emulators, like, that's not even to mention that there are emulators like Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. There are just so many ways to play retro games besides having to own the physical cartridge. In fact, a lot of like the expensive and rare games like on Super Nintendo, like Hagani and Earthbound and Mega Man X3, you can get those ROMs for free on the internet and then put them on like a Raspberry Pi or an emulator, or you could hack your SNES Classic. There's just no reason for me in my life to justify spending that on a little plastic cartridge that's just going to be shelf candy that just I'm going to see. So there are obviously still games that are harder to emulate, like for the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, and I basically have held on to all the good games that I know I'm going to play and that I love, that or have some kind of nostalgic, that I had as a kid or something. I've held on to all that, so I still have like a good amount of games. It's just not the towering stacks and piles like I used to have. I'm glad I no longer have to experience the fear of missing out every time I pass by a yard sale or flea market, thinking like, oh, I missed out on a good deal. Because I could tell you, the thing with the retro game market right now, like, everybody knows what they have at this point. Even grandma who's selling her grandchildren's Nintendo games, even she has read an article or heard something on the news about, rare Nintendo World Championship cartridge sells for $100,000, and now all of a sudden, all the normies in the game community, they all think that they have these expensive ass games just hiding in their closet or whatever. They don't. 9 times out of 10, you don't have. You have all the common games that everyone else had because everyone bought the same shit. That's why the expensive games are expensive, because nobody bought them or they were hard to get. Like Hagani, which was a Blockbuster exclusive that you couldn't buy. And I don't know how people ended up with those, but that's why they're $500 or more on eBay right now. But yeah, 10 or 15 years ago, it was a totally different scene with getting good deals on games. Like, smartphones weren't as evolved as they are now. It was harder to look up prices on things. All these articles hadn't come out about retro gaming, but now it's just completely blown out of the water. The secret's out. Everyone knows what they have. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm done, and I'm happy. I'm done. It's like one less thing that stresses me out, quite frankly. If this channel had, like, remained a video game channel, I probably would have kept all the games and not sold any of them, just so I would have had the street cred. But honestly, now I'm just focusing, as you've seen, I'm focusing this channel more on music, and that was another reason why I didn't really feel bad about selling off a large part of my collection. And even if I still want to do a video on this channel, which I eventually will because I like doing them, I can still do it. I can just, like, show video footage of the game without having to own the actual game cartridge. Like, but there's so many fucking retro video game channels out there on YouTube. I don't even think I would try to do that anyway, because this is like a full-on hardcore hobby for a lot of people, and they are so much more knowledgeable and so much more in-depth about this stuff than me. So I'm just kind of sticking to music, which is the thing that I have the biggest passion for. But what I will say, though, is with all the money that I've made from selling these games, I've been able to do such things as pay my bills, get out of debt, pay off my car, and do I miss any of these games for a second? Not a fucking chance. So if you're considering selling off your collection, I would recommend it, especially if you're not even playing the damn games. It's a seller's market right now, and people are eager to own anything Nintendo and Pokemon related specifically, and even Sega Dreamcast. If you have anything like that, it sells quick. So yeah, that's I never thought I would get to that point in my life where I did it, but you know what? If I have to move again, that's that much less boxes I'm gonna have to pack. And yeah, I mean, like I said, from the pictures I'm sure I'll be putting in here, you see that I still have stuff. I just don't have what I used to have. Sorry if this video was long and pointless, but I don't know. I just felt like I needed to make it. So what is your game collection like? Did you used to collect games? Are you currently trying to collect games? Do you want to get out of it like me? Are you in the process of getting out of it? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you get notified on when my new videos come out. And as usual, until next time... The hell was that noise? Anyway, until next time, have a good rest of your night.